Okay, while this is rendering, let's just take a look at it. I am not liking it much so far, and there's some good reason for that, and we can look at it. So I think the balance between light areas and dark areas is good. Okay, you have this whole centerpiece that's very light. This I want to darken up or make a little heavier, kind of like this side. Kind of what I'm thinking is we can take some, a plant like this and put it over here, and that will kind of solve our issue. The main thing I'm seeing here is our lighting situation, which is kind of relevant to composition because the lighting does a lot to create our forms, to make our forms look three-dimensional, and to create shapes, using direct light, direct shadow. In this particular example, there is no shapes being created by the light really because it's all soft lighting, right? In my opinion, we need some direct light coming in through the windows. And also that'll make the whole thing look much less flat because right now, you have faces, like this whole face is all evenly lit and this one is almost lit exactly the same and this one is almost lit exactly the same as that. So you're not getting depth, you're not getting the forms. You get a little bit of form here on this one couch and that's kind of it, right? You don't even see good contact shadows or direct light shadows being cast. With the furniture, it looks like it's floating slightly here, but even if it wasn't, the contact shadow is really bad. So there's a lot we can do here using composition and lighting to make this look better. And so the whole idea is that we need to think like a photographer, right? Except unlike a photographer, we don't have to wait for the perfect lighting situation. We can create it ourselves. So we look for a good composition, and then as 3D artists, we can control the light completely. So the composition, I think, is good. Let's work on it a little more, and then we'll work on lighting. I think we need to have some extra elements over here, and then we can add some more interest in here. I mean, really, this scene is kind of lacking detail too, right? So having a blank screen there is kind of a problem because we're looking right at just a blank screen, kind of boring. This is also a problem, the lights and the clock. We've got some weird things going on there. This doesn't look good. This wood would need to come down here so the clock could rest above it, right? And we don't want this light and this clock interfering with each other. So there's a lot we can do here. Let's look at Cosmos to bring in some additional assets. Okay, what I did in my experimentation was actually get rid of this chandelier and this light. Got rid of the clock and the TV. And I moved this up. In your model, it might already be up, FYI. And then I went into Cosmos and I brought in I brought in a piece of artwork to put there. So if we open Cosmos and go into 3D models and accessories, we don't want the food. We want a big piece of art to go there. It's actually a rug we could use too, some nicer rugs possibly. Okay, under decoration, I used this print here. So just import it into the scene. It's going to end up right here. And then it's just a matter of rotating it and putting it into place, right? Make sure you've got the right side showing. I like to isolate things so I can see better. So I'll grab that whole chimney construction, put this thing in here, then I'm going to scale it to the right size. Make sure it fits right in there. Hopefully I've got the right side of it. Maybe it's supposed to be this way. Hard to know until I render. But if we look at our camera now we have a nice work of art sitting in there. To turn on and off the safe frames, by the way, it's Shift F, and that shows us the proportions of our actual rendering. Now we could copy this plant or we can grab a new one from Cosmos. Vase and planters under accessories. No, maybe, where is it? 3D models, vegetation, indoor plants. We want a nice big one. Something like this. Okay, and this is the great thing about Cosmos. Let's use the move tool instead of the place tool. Great thing about Cosmos is you can just drag and drop. So easy. And we can, of course, display that whole mesh if we want. So preview from file, edges, show whole mesh is what we would want here. When you're doing composition, you kind of want to see the mesh, right? So you know what those shapes are going to be creating. I want it to go a little more here. No, I want it to move a little bit more to the side, but I don't want it to go out the window. And it is going out the window, right? So we need it here, and then we can maybe rotate it along the z-axis. That's probably about the best we can place it right there. Okay, so maybe we have an issue where this one looks a little too spiky and this one looks, you know, like these big broad leaves. So maybe we want to just match them. Either move this one here or move this one there, or copy it there. Okay, the other thing we can do, the other thing I was doing with my experiment is putting some things of interest on the table here, like some decoration. And this is all just to draw the eye kind of into this area so that we're not looking all over the scene and we have some place of interest. We can use depth of field a little bit for that too, but in this case it's mostly going to be lighting and composition that makes everything work. So again, the hard thing is kind of telling the whole story while also keeping a nice composition and not giving too much information, right? So with our vignette, this was easier. We were just looking at that chair and all we needed to concentrate on that chair. In this case, we want to see kind of what the overall space feels like, but still make it so that there's a point of interest for our eye and we're not just looking all over the place. So we want to have a good composition first and foremost, and that is determined somewhat by the mass of the building. And then we can enhance the composition by placing objects and framing things in a little bit and creating points of interest that we want to look at, some higher detail areas, things like that. And then the last thing we'll do is use lighting to kind of create some drama, create, again, some points of interest, and also to accentuate the forms of the 3 dimensions in our scene. Okay, so use Cosmos to kind of stage your scene. In the next video, I'm going to start looking at using lighting to make this a little bit better. And that will be kind of the final piece to the puzzle to making a nice scene after you've placed everything how you want it and composed everything how you want it.